There are moments in life when a single door opens, and every truth you tried to ignore rushes out like a storm. For her, that moment arrived on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, when she was 30 years old and carrying the weight of a whole relationship on her shoulders. She had been working full-time for years, supporting a boyfriend who refused to work, refused to grow, and refused to love her the way she deserved. Everyone around her whispered doubts, but she believed love could change a person. She believed patience mattered. She believed struggle today meant peace tomorrow. She was wrong. That day, she left work early. Not because she planned a surprise or wanted rest, but because something inside her felt strange. A feeling she couldn't name. A warning she couldn't ignore. Her hands trembled the entire drive home. The sky was dark, heavy, and quiet, the kind of quiet that hides danger behind it. When she reached the house, the first thing she noticed was the music. Loud. Careless. A song she knew he played only when he was home with company. Her heartbeat grew faster. She placed her hand on the doorknob. And it wasn't locked. He always locked it. Always. She pushed the door open slowly. And there he was, her boyfriend, laughing on the couch with another woman. A girl she recognized, but not someone she ever wanted to see inside her home. Her eyes widened when she saw them sitting close, their voices low, their smiles too familiar. In that single second, her heart cracked in a way she could actually feel. The other woman turned her head sharply, shock twisting into anger, then something darker. Their eyes locked. A silent war began. This wasn't just a stranger. This was the same woman who had argued with her online. The same woman she suspected was sleeping with her boyfriend. They had exchanged messages before, cold, sharp, filled with suspicion. But she never imagined meeting her like this. Not in her own living room. Everything in her went numb, her hands, her thoughts, her breath. He stood up too quickly, as if he'd been caught stealing. "Baby, it's not what it looks like," he stammered. But lies are loud even when spoken softly. She didn't say a word. She just stared, trying to understand how someone she trusted could betray her so boldly, so easily. The other woman didn't back down. She stepped forward. Her voice was sharp, unhinged. "So you're the one accusing me of cheating on my boyfriend? You think you're better than me?" The narrator pauses. Some stories start with heartbreak. Others start with betrayal. But this one starts with a knife. Because before she could utter a single word, the woman reached into her bag and pulled out a butcher knife. Long, silver, cold. The blade gleamed under the dim lights of the living room. Time froze. He didn't stop her. He didn't shout. He didn't protect the woman who had supported him for years. He stood back. And she, the girlfriend, took one breath. Just one. Then everything exploded into motion. The attacker lunged with the knife, screaming. It was wild, desperate, dangerous. But what she didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that the girlfriend had trained in martial arts for years. Discipline had shaped her body. Focus had shaped her mind. She moved quickly, stepping aside, grabbing the attacker's wrist, twisting just enough to disarm without causing permanent harm. The knife clattered to the floor. The attacker screamed again, reaching for it, but the girlfriend kicked it away. A second strike, a block, a counter, precise, controlled, until the attacker stumbled backward. The boyfriend didn't help either one. He simply watched. Silence filled the room. The girlfriend picked up her phone. "I'm calling the police," she said calmly. The attacker panicked. She tried to run out the front door, but she didn't get far. Minutes later, police cars screeched onto the street. The woman tried to sprint across the yard, but the officers shouted, drew their weapons, and stopped her instantly. She dropped her bag, and everything fell out. Knives. Drugs. Chaos. Truth. They arrested her on the spot. Justice, fast and sharp. But the narrator leans in here and whispers. This was only the beginning. Because sometimes revenge doesn't end with police sirens. It begins with them. People think danger ends when the police arrive. But sometimes, that is when the real story begins. Because after the knife was taken, after the attacker was dragged away in handcuffs, after the boyfriend stood there pretending he didn't understand what had just happened, something inside her shifted. Something small, quiet, but powerful, like a flame awakening inside a frozen heart. She wasn't the same woman who walked into the house minutes earlier. She stood in the living room, staring at the mess the attacker had made. Her jacket had fallen on the floor. A picture frame was cracked. The broken pieces looked like her life, once whole, now shattered. Her boyfriend approached slowly, trying to look innocent, trying to appear confused. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft. She looked at him, and saw a stranger. A liar. A coward. "Did you cheat on me with her?" she asked, her voice low, steady, and colder than she expected. He froze. His eyes flickered. A smart man would have confessed. A decent man would have apologized. A guilty man, at least, would have looked ashamed. He did none of those things. "No," he said. "I never cheated on you. She's crazy. You know that." But lies stand out when spoken next to truth, and the truth had already cut through the room like the knife she had kicked away. He kept talking, over-explaining, deflecting, trying to turn the whole situation into an accident. "You're overreacting," he insisted. "She came here needing help. You know how people get. Don't twist things." She didn't argue. Not because she believed him, but because she didn't want to waste another word on someone who couldn't respect her. She walked past him, stepped outside into the evening air, and let herself breathe. Her hands were still shaking. Not from fear, but from the shock of realizing she'd spent years loving someone who didn't deserve a single day of her loyalty. The police car drove away with the attacker. The neighborhood lights flickered over the street. And for a brief moment, she felt safe again. Not because he was beside her, but because she knew her own strength now. But the narrator warns. Strength doesn't protect you from betrayal. Not when betrayal is hiding inside your own home. 3 days later, the truth came crashing down like a storm. She got a message from a mutual friend. Then another. Then 2 phone calls. Each one confirming the same thing. Her boyfriend had been cheating with the same woman who attacked her. Not once. Not twice. But repeatedly, openly, shamelessly. The betrayal hit her deeper than any blade ever could. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the wall. She had just paid the rent the day before the attack. She had worked double shifts. She had skipped lunches, sacrificed sleep, given every part of herself to keep their life stable. And he repaid her with lies and infidelity. Anger did not explode inside her. No. It settled in like ice, slow and steady. That is the kind of anger that changes destinies. Not loud, not violent, but cold and patient. She picked up her phone and called him. "We need to talk," she said. He sounded annoyed. About what? About being caught? About the consequences of his own choices? 10 minutes later, she arrived at the house. She opened the gate and froze. Her clothes, every shirt, every dress, every piece she owned, were shredded, torn, cut into long strips and thrown across the yard. Her shoes were scattered. Her books were ruined. Personal items destroyed. The wind moved the pieces like tiny ghosts whispering the truth of who he really was. But what hurt the most wasn't the shredded fabric. It was the locks. He had changed them. He had shut her out of the home she paid for. He had thrown her life out like trash. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply turned around and walked away. She dialed her closest friend. "I need a place to stay," she whispered. Her friend didn't ask questions. They just said, "Come over." That night, she lay awake on a borrowed pillow, staring at a ceiling she didn't recognize. Her heart was bruised, her mind overwhelmed, her future unclear, but she wasn't broken. Not yet. The next day, She called the ex again. She needed one more thing. Her animals. Her cat and her dog. The only living creatures who gave her real comfort. The dog was a Christmas gift from him. Or so she believed. When she arrived to get them, he handed her the cat. But not the dog. "She's not yours," he said casually. "She belongs to my ex-wife. I'm giving her back." She stood there in silence. Her last gift, the one thing she held on to, wasn't even real. The narrator leans in, quiet and sharp. Some betrayals steal your past. But others steal the ground beneath your feet. She walked away holding only her cat. Her heart empty, but her spine straight. She didn't know it yet, but life had just opened a new door, one her ex would regret forever. Because revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it begins in silence and grows into something unstoppable. Every story of revenge has a moment, a turning point, a quiet second when the victim stops being a victim and becomes something else entirely. For her, that moment arrived 1 month after the breakup. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't filled with shouting or tears. It was simple. She signed the papers for her own place. A small apartment. A clean space. A door that locked. A place where she didn't have to worry about knives, lies, or broken promises. She stood inside the empty living room, sunlight falling across the floor, and for the first time in years, she felt peace. Not happiness. Not excitement. Just peace, the kind that comes after a storm. Her first night there was quiet. She placed her cat on the bed, unpacked a single box, and sat on the carpet. Everything was gone. Her clothes, her memories, her decorations, all shredded or thrown away by the man who claimed to love her. But the narrator whispers something important. Sometimes losing everything is the first step toward gaining more than you ever imagined. As the days passed, she started rebuilding her life. Piece by piece. Brick by brick. She worked her shifts, came home tired but free, and slowly filled the apartment with proof of her survival. Clean laundry, new dishes, small decorations. Every item represented independence. Every move represented strength. But life wasn't done surprising her. One evening, while she was scrolling through her phone, she received a message. It was from a mutual friend, one she trusted, one who had always been kind. He asked if she was okay. He asked if she needed anything. He didn't ask for gossip or details. He simply cared. Their conversations started slowly. A message today. A joke tomorrow. A long late-night chat about life and relationships. He told her something she didn't expect. He had known for a long time that her ex was cheating, lying, manipulating. But he didn't know how to tell her without hurting her. He said he regretted staying silent. She didn't get angry. She understood. Silence is easier than truth. Especially when dealing with a man who pretends to be charming but hides poison underneath. Their conversations grew deeper. Their trust grew stronger. And eventually, something she never intended happened. She began to heal. And healing opened the door to something bigger. One weekend, he invited her for coffee. Nothing romantic, nothing heavy. Just two people sitting outside a small cafe, laughing about old memories and disasters they barely survived. For the first time in a long time, she smiled without forcing it. The narrator explains. Healing does not happen when the pain disappears. It happens when the heart finally realizes it deserved better all along. Over the next few weeks, things shifted between them. Their messages were warmer. Their calls were longer. Their chemistry was obvious. But she was careful, very careful. She didn't want another storm. She didn't want another heartbreak. She didn't want someone who needed saving. She wanted someone who walked beside her, not someone she had to carry. And this new man understood that without being told. They didn't rush. They didn't pretend. They didn't repeat the mistakes of the past. One evening, as the sun faded and the sky turned the soft color of bruised purple, He said something she didn't expect. "I like you. I've liked you for years. I didn't say anything because you were with him." She froze for a second. Not out of panic, but out of disbelief. This was someone her ex called a friend. Someone he trusted enough to drink with, play games with, share stories with. A mutual friend. And in that moment, she knew the truth. Her ex had thrown away someone who genuinely loved her, while trying to keep someone who wanted to destroy her. Life's irony can be sharp. A few days later, they decided to make their relationship official. Not secretly, not quietly, but openly, with pride and honesty. And that is when the storm returned. The narrator leans in. Some men don't care when they betray you, but they cannot tolerate you moving on without them. The ex found out. And he exploded. He sent messages filled with anger, insults, and threats. He said she had betrayed him. He said she was wrong for dating a mutual friend. He even accused her of plotting everything, as if her suffering had been part of some master plan. But she didn't react. She didn't argue. She didn't respond. She didn't waste another drop of her energy on someone who never valued her. Instead, she blocked his number and continued her life. Days passed. Weeks passed. And something incredible happened. Her relationship with the mutual friend grew into something real. Something deep. Something healthy. For the first time, she felt loved, not used. Supported, not drained. Respected, not controlled. Her ex hated it. But that hatred was the beginning of his downfall. Because while she was building a new life, he was sinking deeper into his chaos. And soon, the world would see the difference between them. The woman who rose, and the man who fell. Revenge, the real kind, is rarely fast. It doesn't happen in one moment, one outburst, one fight. It grows quietly, like roots under the ground, unseen but unstoppable. And while she was slowly rebuilding her life, something else was happening on the other side of the city. Her ex, the man who once controlled her life, destroyed her clothes, locked her out, lied without shame, was starting to collapse under the weight of his own choices. But he didn't know it yet. Not at first. Because when she moved on with the mutual friend, now her new partner, her ex felt something he wasn't used to feeling. He felt powerless. For years, he lived like a king in a castle she built. She paid the rent. She bought the groceries. She cleaned the house. She supported him while he slept late, made excuses, and flirted with other women behind her back. But now, his castle was empty. Because the queen had walked away, and taken her strength with her. He tried to pretend he didn't care. He told people he was living his best life. He bragged to friends that losing her meant nothing. He even acted like he dumped her. But the truth began to show in the smallest details, like cracks in a dam. People noticed him drinking more, borrowing money, quitting jobs as soon as he was hired, showing up late with excuses, stories, lies. While she grew stronger, he grew unstable. The narrator explains. Some people don't fall because others push them. They fall because their own actions take away every step beneath them. Meanwhile, she was creating a life that looked nothing like the one she had escaped. Her new relationship grew deeper, steadier, more peaceful. They didn't shout at each other. They didn't hide things. There were no knives, no broken locks, no shredded clothes. Just two people learning how to build. Together. One evening, he took her to see a small house. A fixer-upper. A place with old paint and crooked tiles but strong bones. We could buy it, he said. Together. She stared at him, stunned. Her ex had never even paid half a bill. He never spoke about a future. Only excuses. But this man was showing her what partnership meant. Slowly, she let herself dream again. And soon, that dream became reality. They bought their first house together. Not fancy. Not perfect. But theirs. The narrator smiles. The sweetest beginnings often grow from the most broken places. Each month, they worked on renovations. Painting walls. Fixing floors. Building shelves. Creating something stable, safe, honest. Meanwhile, her ex was moving in the opposite direction. He bounced between girlfriends, each relationship shorter, louder, more chaotic than the last. He fought with people. Lost jobs. Borrowed more money. Broke promises. Burned bridges. And every time word of his failures reached her, she didn't laugh. She didn't celebrate. She didn't feel pity either. She just understood that karma was finally beginning its work. But the real turn, the sharp, satisfying twist, came unexpectedly. One day, she and her new partner posted a picture online. Nothing dramatic. Nothing personal. Just a moment from their daily life. Smiling, standing beside a freshly painted wall in their new home. Within an hour, her ex messaged her. Not to apologize. Not to take responsibility. But to insult her. He raged that she betrayed him. That she disrespected him. That she owed him. The man she supported. The man who lied to her. The man who brought a violent woman into her home. The man who shredded her clothes and threw her life on the ground. She owed him nothing. She blocked him again. This time forever. But his tantrum didn't end there. He went around telling people she stole his friend. He cried to anyone who would listen. But after years of lies and drama, people began to see him clearly. They stopped believing him. Stopped defending him. Stopped giving him chances. His reputation cracked. His circle shrank. His options vanished. While she, the woman he once took for granted, kept rising. Months passed. She and her new partner grew stronger. They bought a second home. Then a third. Then an investment property. Their business opened. And succeeded. They earned together. Saved together. Lived together. And somewhere across the city, her ex was renting a couch. Not even a room. A couch. In a bad neighborhood. Living off favors. Living off lies. Living off the last pieces of a life he had destroyed with his own hands. The narrator leans forward. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet comparison. Your success versus their failure. Every choice he once mocked her for. Every sacrifice he ignored. Every effort he wasted. She had now turned into a better life. And he was living inside the consequences of every lie he told. This wasn't the end of her revenge. Not yet. Because the universe had one final twist waiting. And it would cut deeper than any knife she dodged. Revenge does not always strike like lightning. Sometimes, it unfolds like sunrise, slow, gentle, unstoppable. A light that exposes every shadow one by one. Years were passing now, yet her story was only becoming brighter. Her new relationship, the one that started softly with trust and patience, turned into something far greater than she ever imagined. What began as late-night conversations and shy smiles grew into a deep, peaceful partnership. A kind of love that didn't drain her, but filled her. Every day, she discovered something she never had with her ex. Respect. Stability. Honesty. Teamwork. Real love. They didn't yell at each other. They didn't hide things. They didn't leave scars. They built. First one house. Then another. Then another. The narrator lets the words breathe. Some people build drama. Some people build homes. She finally chose the kind who builds. The couple bought their fourth property together, a rental this time. A small place, but it was income. A foundation. A future. The kind of achievement her ex only dreamed about while sitting on a couch that wasn't even his. She and her partner started a business too. They worked day and night, side by side, learning new skills, making mistakes, trying again. Their business grew. And grew. And grew. Success didn't shout. It whispered in the form of results. Steady, undeniable, life-changing. Then came the best moment of all. They welcomed a daughter into the world. A tiny miracle with wide eyes and a soft cry. A little life that made everything she suffered worth something, because every pain she overcame led her to this joy. She held her baby in her arms, looked at her partner, and realized. She wasn't just healed. She was transformed. She had gone from a woman who gave everything to the wrong man, to a woman who built everything with the right one. But the universe wasn't done. Because karma never forgets. While her new life was growing, her ex's life was shrinking like a puddle in the sun. He couldn't keep a job. He couldn't keep a partner. He couldn't keep a friend. Every person who entered his world left sooner or later, exhausted by his lies, his laziness, his manipulation. By the time he reached his early 40s, he was a ghost of who he pretended to be. The charming talker? Gone. The confident liar? Gone. The man who wanted to control her life? Gone. He lived on a friend's couch now, in a bad part of the city, surrounded by noise, chaos, and regret. He owned nothing. Not a house. Not a car. Not savings. Not stability. And for the first time, he could see that the problem wasn't everyone else. The problem was him. One evening, he scrolled through social media, the same platform where he once bragged, posed, and acted like the king of a world she paid for. And there he saw something he couldn't ignore. A photo of her family. She and her husband standing proudly in front of their sixth property. Their daughter sitting on her hip. All three smiling. Tired but happy. Successful. Stable. Safe. He stopped scrolling. His stomach twisted. His throat dried. For the first time, he felt something like true regret, but regret mixed with jealousy, bitterness, and a pain he had earned himself. The narrator speaks softly. Some people spend their lives waiting to see their ex fail. But the real revenge is watching yourself rise instead. He zoomed in on the picture. Her smile. Her stability. Her life. Everything he threw away. And then he realized something cruel. Something sharp. She had everything he wanted. Everything he pretended he would build someday. Everything he claimed he deserved. But she built it all with another man, a man he once called a friend. That truth cut him deeper than any heartbreak he ever caused. He leaned back on the couch he didn't own, inside the apartment he didn't pay for, and for the first time in years, he felt the weight of his own choices crushing him. Meanwhile, she was making dinner in her beautiful kitchen, humming softly as her daughter played nearby. Her husband walked in with a smile, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "We did it." And she whispered back, "Yes, we did." Because the victory wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple. She succeeded. He didn't. She built a life. He destroyed his. She rose. He fell. And that contrast, that quiet, undeniable truth, was the sweetest form of revenge the universe could deliver. But her story, her final victory, still had one chapter left. A chapter where closure would arrive in a way she never expected. Life has a strange way of bringing back the people we thought we'd never see again. Not to reopen wounds, but to show us how much we've healed. For her, that moment arrived one afternoon when she least expected it. It had been years since she escaped the chaos of her old life. Years since she left behind the man who betrayed her. Years since she rebuilt everything he tried to destroy. Now she lived in a quiet neighborhood. A clean street. A home filled with laughter instead of shouting, honesty instead of lies, love instead of pain. Her daughter was older now, running through the living room with small steps and loud giggles. Her husband was in the home office finishing work. The kitchen smelled like warm bread and cinnamon. Peace had become normal for her. Then came the knock. Soft at first. Then louder. Almost nervous. She wiped her hands, walked to the door, and opened it halfway. And there he stood. Her ex. The same man who once destroyed her things, threw her clothes into the yard, locked her out of her own life. The man who shouted, manipulated, lied, cheated, and blamed everyone except himself. But he didn't look powerful now. He didn't look confident. He didn't even look like a shadow of the man he used to pretend to be. He looked small, older, thinner, eyes tired, shoulders sunken, clothes wrinkled, hands shaking slightly. A man who had run out of excuses. For a moment, she said nothing. Just silence, calm, cold, steady silence. Silence she had earned. "Hi," he muttered. His voice had none of its old arrogance. It was weak, almost timid. She didn't answer. He swallowed hard. I just wanted to talk." "About what? About the cheating? The knife attack? The shredded clothes? The lies? The dog he never owned? The years she wasted on him?" No. He didn't come for honesty. He came for something else. He came because he had nothing left. "I've been going through a lot," he said, eyes flickering. "I've had bad luck. Jobs aren't working out. People keep turning on me. I don't know why." The narrator arches an eyebrow. Some people are cursed by others. Some people are cursed by their own actions. He kept talking. "I just thought, maybe we could be friends again. Maybe you could help me get back on my feet." Help him. Her. The woman he abandoned. The woman he hurt. The woman he betrayed. Help him. It was almost laughable. But she didn't laugh. She didn't shout. She didn't even glare. She simply looked at him, the way you look at a story you once believed but now see as nothing but fiction. Behind her, her daughter giggled. Her husband stepped into the hall, took one look at the man outside, and gently placed a hand on her shoulder, silently asking, "Do you want me to handle this?" She shook her head. This was her past. Her closure. Her justice. Her ex followed the motion of her husband's hand and his face tightened with jealousy, the only emotion he truly understood. His eyes filled with bitterness. "So you really ended up with him," he muttered. She didn't answer. He took a breath. "You know, I could have been something too. If things had gone differently. If you hadn't left. If." She cut him off with the softest voice she had ever used with him. "Don't lie to yourself." He froze. And for the first time, he heard the truth she had carried for years, the truth he never wanted to face. "You didn't fail because of me," she said. "You failed because you never tried. Not once. Not for your life. Not for your future. Not even for yourself." Her voice was calm. Not angry. Not emotional. Just honest. And that honesty hurt him more than any insult could. Her ex looked down. His breathing slowed. His hands trembled. He knew she was right, but he didn't know how to admit it. She stepped back, ready to close the door. That much alone shook him. "Wait," he said, desperate. "Just tell me one thing." She paused. "Why did you move on so fast?" "With him." The real question. The one burning in his chest for years. She looked at him, really looked, then spoke the truth he needed to hear. "Because he was everything you pretended to be." Silence. Heavy, brutal silence. Her ex's face twisted, regret, anger, grief, jealousy, confusion, all fighting inside him. But none of them mattered anymore. She was done. She stepped back and said the final words he would ever hear from her. "Close your own wounds. I'm not your cure." Then she shut the door. Not loudly. Not violently. Just firmly. A clean end. Her ex stood outside for a few seconds, stunned, then slowly walked away. His footsteps were heavy, the steps of a man forced to face himself for the first time. Inside the house, she turned and saw her husband watching her with quiet pride. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. She walked toward him, and he wrapped his arms around her, not to protect her, but to honor the strength she already had. The narrator smiles. The moment you stop bleeding for someone is the moment they begin to bleed for themselves. But there were still 2 chapters left. 2 chapters where Karma would finish what she started. Every story has a moment when justice becomes visible, not in the form of punishment, but in the form of truth finally catching up. For her ex, that moment came slowly, like a shadow that kept growing behind him until it swallowed everything he had left. After the day she closed the door on him, he walked away feeling something he rarely felt in his entire life. Real consequences. For years, he lived without them. He did whatever he wanted, lie, cheat, hurt, manipulate, and he never looked back. People forgave him. People covered for him. People believed his excuses. But now, no one did. His visit to her house didn't bring closure. It brought clarity. He finally saw what he had lost, a woman who worked, loved, sacrificed, and built a future he was never mature enough to value. But it was not just her he lost. He lost the people who once respected him. He lost the friends who once supported him. He lost the trust he once used like currency. He lost the last pieces of his pride. The narrator leans in. Karma doesn't always punish with pain. Sometimes it punishes with the truth you can no longer escape. As the days passed, his life continued its downward spiral. The friend whose couch he was renting finally got tired of him not paying rent. He was asked to leave. Another friend tried helping him, but after he borrowed money and never returned it, that friendship collapsed too. He got hired at a local store, but lasted only 2 weeks. Late again. Missed shifts again. Excuses again. People who once laughed at his jokes now rolled their eyes when he walked in. They knew the pattern. They had seen people like him before. Meanwhile, she was living the kind of life she once prayed for. While he was jumping from couch to couch, she was signing papers for their 7th property. While he was asking friends for small loans, she and her husband were expanding a successful business. While he was ruining new relationships with the same old habits, she was raising a daughter in a safe, clean home filled with love. The contrast wasn't just visible. It was painful. And Karma wasn't finished yet. Because one evening, the past found him again, not through her, but through something else. His own reputation. He tried starting a new relationship with a woman he met online. They went on a few dates. He lied about his job, bragged about his past, pretended to be successful. But the woman was smarter than he expected. She searched his name on social media. She saw pictures, comments, old posts from people he once hurt. And then she found something unexpected. The picture of his ex, now standing with her husband and daughter in front of a beautiful home. She messaged him. "You weren't honest. I'm not interested." He panicked. Called her. Texted her. But she didn't answer. He wasn't just alone. He was exposed. The narrator speaks softly. Some men learn when they lose love. Some men learn when they lose comfort. But the hardest lessons come when they lose their lies. Meanwhile, she didn't even think about him anymore. Her life was full. Her days were busy. Her home was peaceful. Her heart was safe. One morning, she sat at a cafe with her husband. Their daughter giggled in the stroller, reaching for a piece of bread. They held hands, laughed about something silly, talked about future plans. And in that moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Not just freedom from him, but freedom from the old version of herself who tolerated pain, begged for love, accepted disrespect. She had evolved. He had not. But Karma had one last message to deliver, one final reminder of how far she had risen, and how far he had fallen. It came through a mutual friend, the same one who had once told her the truth about the cheating years earlier. They ran into him accidentally in a store. He was thinner, older, tired, standing in the discount aisle, counting coins to pay for groceries. He looked like a man who had lived a lifetime of bad decisions. A man who never grew up. A man who aged, but never matured. The mutual friend later told her. He asked about you. She raised an eyebrow. Why? He said you were the only good thing in his life. The only stable thing. Her expression didn't change. And he said he didn't realize it until it was too late. The narrator smiles. Regret is the tax that life collects from those who refuse to learn. Her heart didn't soften. It didn't hurt. It didn't feel excited. It felt nothing. Because that's what closure really is. When the person who once ruined you can no longer reach you. Not with words. Not with memories. Not with pain. Her life had moved too far forward for his shadow to ever catch up. But the story wasn't finished. There was one last chapter, the final realization, the ultimate twist, the sweetest revenge of all. A chapter where she would finally understand. Karma wasn't her weapon. It was her shield. Every story needs an ending. But not every ending needs noise. Some endings arrive quietly, like a door closing softly, like a page turning without effort. And sometimes, the best revenge is not something you do. It's someone you become. Years passed, and she lived the kind of life she once thought existed only in movies. A life built with patience. A life built with love. A life built with the man who treated her gently, honestly, and equally. Her daughter grew taller, her home grew warmer, and her days grew fuller. Holidays felt brighter. Birthdays felt sweeter. Even normal Wednesdays felt meaningful. But the most powerful thing of all was this. She never looked over her shoulder anymore. No fear. No ache. No old wounds reopening. Her past had finally become what it should have always been. A story she survived, not a place she lived. And yet, the universe had one final lesson to show her. A final moment that made everything clear. It happened one sunny afternoon. She and her husband were driving to one of their rental homes to check on renovations. From the passenger side, she looked out the window, watching city blocks pass by, watching strangers walk with coffee cups, watching the world move. At a red light, her husband pointed. Isn't that him? She followed his gaze. And there he was. Her ex. Walking alone on a cracked sidewalk in a rough neighborhood. Same clothes from years ago. Faded, worn out, 2 sizes too big. Hair messy. Posture slouched. Hands in pockets as if trying to hide from his own life. He looked older than his age. Not from time, but from choices. She blinked slowly, processing what she saw. Not with anger. Not with hatred. Just realization. If life is a story, then this was the chapter where everything finally made sense. He didn't see them. He didn't look up. He didn't even sense the car nearby. He just kept walking, looking like a man who carried the weight of his own failures on his back. Every step he took felt heavy, not physically, but spiritually. A man who had wasted years, burned bridges, ruined chances, and now had nothing left. Not a partner. Not a home. Not stability. Not growth. Not respect. Not purpose. Just regret. Pure, lonely regret. The narrator speaks softly. Some people think revenge is watching your enemy suffer. But real revenge is watching yourself succeed while they remain exactly where their choices placed them. The light turned green. Her husband asked gently, "Do you want to stop? Talk to him. Or anything?" She shook her head with the calmest smile. "No," she said. "There's nothing I need from him anymore." And that was the moment. The moment her story found its true ending. Not in shouting. Not in confrontation. Not in a dramatic speech. But in freedom. Because real power is not proving someone wrong. Real power is not making someone regret losing you. Real power is living a life so peaceful, so successful, so full of love, that their existence no longer touches your heart. She looked at her husband, the man who stayed, loved, supported, and built a life with her. She looked at the picture of their daughter hanging from the car mirror. She looked at her hands, hands that once trembled from heartbreak but now held joy. Then she looked out the window one last time, at the man she used to cry for. And she felt nothing. Not anger. Not pain. Not attachment. Not even pity. Just closure. She turned back to her husband and said, "Let's go. We have work to do." He smiled, squeezed her hand, and drove forward. And as the car moved on, she realized something she had waited years to understand. She didn't get revenge. Life gave it to her. The kind of revenge that doesn't hurt others, but heals you. The kind of revenge that shows you who you were always meant to become. The kind of revenge that proves. She succeeded. She grew. She built. She healed. She found love. She found peace. She found herself. While he remained in the same cycle he created with his own hands. Still stuck. Still lost. Still searching for someone to blame. The narrator closes the story with the final truth. Karma is never early. Karma is never late. Karma arrives exactly when it should. And in the end, she didn't just win the battle. She won her life. The sweetest revenge wasn't ruining his future. It was creating her own. A future filled with love, success, family, and peace. A future he could only watch from a distance. A future he could never have. Because he never deserved it. Her story ends not with darkness, but with sunrise. Bright, warm, beautiful. And hers. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy the story, please hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon. Comment below for more stories like this. Your support means the world to us.